The office isn't scary, and it's not supposed to be, but the horror lives there anyway, calm, ordinary, familiar. Not the kind with ghosts or demons, but the kind that hides in repeat, regret, in the slow fading away of identity. The kind that doesn't scare you until you see it in the corner of the office hiding. We're gonna be looking at the darker layers inside the show's world, the emotional decline, the constant dilemmas, and the things that people choose not to say. They're not evil by any means, maybe numb, or just tired, or maybe they've just forgotten how to live. Leave? Live. Leave. Live. Today, we're diving into the horror within. Michael's hell is simple. He's always doing too much, constantly talking, constantly joking. Everything's a performance. Pay attention. None of it ever lands. Most people smile politely, then move on. But he doesn't stop. Because underneath all the voices and impressions, he just wants someone, anyone, to stay. To stick around long enough to see him, his show, his talent. For Michael, the scariest thing isn't failing at work or being rejected by love. It's vanishing into the background, being invisible in a world where everyone else has someone to go home to. Every gag, every "that's what she said," every desperate meeting he drags out, it's all a plea to be remembered. And the horror is that the harder he tries, the more people pull away. He becomes louder, needier, and in turn, emptier. Because for Michael Scott, the nightmare isn't just being unseen. It's realizing that even when people do see him, they still don't stay. Dwight Schrute relies on rules to keep him going, and titles are sort of masks that he's hiding behind. Assistant to the regional manager, assistant regional manager, beat farmer, volunteer sheriff's deputy. Every rule he enforces, every title he clings to is a way of keeping the world predictable, controllable. Because if things aren't orderly, then the only thing that's left is uncertainty. And uncertainty terrifies Dwight. He builds fortresses out of routine, weapons in his desk, contracts for relationships, endless loyalty to a boss who barely respects him. It's not about power, it's about safety. Without rules and titles, he might not know who he is at all. Underneath all this, Dwight isn't ruthless. He's fragile. His horror isn't being defeated, it's being directionless. A soldier without a war, a farmer without a harvest, a man without a script. Jim Halpert, he's smug, he's arrogant, he's this wasn't his file. He's cool, he smirks, he pranks, and kind of carries that too good for this place vibe. But deep down, he's scared. Scared to take a real risk, scared that trying might mean failing. So what does he do? Nothing. He stays put, in the middle, not miserable, but not happy either. Just drifting in that emptiness, in that dull state. Jim doesn't hate his life. He actually likes it just enough to settle. The pranks, the sarcasm, the long stares into the camera, they all help cover up the fact that he's letting time slip by. Every chance he gets to change, moving to Stanford, starting athlete, he hesitates, compromises, or waits until someone else pushes first. The horror isn't in collapse, it's in watching someone with potential slowly wasted in real time. When we first meet Pam, she has dreams, hopes. She's sketching in her little notebook, imagining something more, an art school, a gallery, maybe even just a life that feels like her own. But the office doesn't crush dreams in one big blow. It bleeds them out slowly. The fluorescent lights, the asbestos, the endless calls, the way every day feels exactly the same as the last. Little by little, her spark fades. She stops showing her sketches, stops talking about what she wants, stops asking herself what that even is. And no one notices. Not Jim, not her friends, not even Pam herself. She didn't make a choice to give up her dream. It almost just slipped away. Stanley Hudson isn't angry. He's done. Checked out. There's no passion left. There might never have been any to begin with. He's the guy who's most aware of the purgatory they're stuck in. Routines and countdowns. Except for Pretzel Day. That is a good day. Phyllis Vance is sweet, quiet, easy to overlook. People barely register she's there. And maybe that's the point. Over time, it starts to feel like she's built her whole identity around being ignored and learned how to use it. There's a sadness there, but also something colder. In one deleted scene, she casually admits to hitting someone with a car and driving off. She literally confesses to a possible murder in front of a camera. Wait, what? And nothing happens, except the shot never airs. Maybe it couldn't, because if you aired that clip, you'd see Phyllis for what she really is. Someone who's learned that the best way to hide is in plain sight. Angela Martin is the epitome of the religious, judgmental person who silently judges everyone. And I mean everyone, even you, for dignifying all that's happening by even watching it. When you're convinced you're a saint, there's no way to go but down, which is exactly what happens. Her life becomes a maze of secrets, affairs, shame, control. Her world only functions if no one ever sees the full picture, including herself. Kevin Malone's story is quite devastating. At first, Kevin's just a little awkward, kind, maybe a bit slow, but still capable, still part of the team. Then the jokes start. And somewhere along the way, he stops resisting them. He leans in, simplifies himself, plays the fool, because if people are laughing, at least they're not looking too closely. One thing's for sure, it's easier to be the clown than to be taken seriously. For Oscar Martinez, it's not quite hell. It's more like purgatory. He is the smartest person in the dumbest room. He's thoughtful, logical, well-read, and none of it counts here. In Dunder Mifflin, reason is background noise. Michael mocks him, Kevin ignores him, Angela resents him. Even when he's right, it doesn't change anything. Over time, his intelligence becomes a burden. He's trapped explaining, constantly saying, actually, correcting, and sighing. The cruel twist? He can see the walls closing in, and he still stays. Being the voice of reason in a place built on nonsense isn't power. It's a slow, daily punishment. Meredith Palmer's chaos isn't random. It's armor. The drinking, the oversharing, the wild jokes. She turns everything into a distraction, a dare, a disaster. Anything but stillness. Because if she ever slowed down, she might have to feel something she's been trying to avoid for a very long time. Let's be honest. Creed isn't just a character. He's a phenomenon. And no, he didn't pay me to say this. He feels like a bug in the system, a virus that the office just learn to live with. Nobody really knows what his job is. Some days he doesn't even know what his job is. He talks about cults, fake names, fraud, among being, business in the parking lot, and so on. Yet somehow he never gets fired. If anything, he thrives in chaos, like he feeds off of it. He's not trying to climb the ladder, he is the ladder. Wait, does that even make sense? And if you ask too many questions, you might end up in a Creed story you didn't want to be part of. Kelley Kapoor lives her life like a reality show. Every conversation is drama. Every outfit is a statement. If TikTok existed back then, she'd be posting reels of her choosing outfits for work, going to work, what she eats at work, what everyone says at work, what Stanley thinks of her, new skirt at work, and then leaving at 5 p.m. work like #tired, #done for the day. Underneath it all, she just wants someone to see her and not look away. Ryan Howard, the big shot who never got big, and it broke him. He almost made it. That idea never leaves his head. He got the title, the suit, the corner office, and then he lost it all, fast. Back to being a temp. The job he thought he was too good for. He acts like nothing matters, like he's above it all, but underneath it's obvious. He still thinks about how high he got, and how far he's fallen. Toby Flenderson's always in the room, quietly sitting at the edge of every scene like background noise you've learned to ignore. Not just because he's HR or because Michael hates him, but because no one really sees him. He talks softly, moves slowly, and leaves almost no trace. The kind of guy who could vanish from the office and it would take a week for anyone to notice. He's literally the human version of dead air. But maybe there's something else, a tension, a silence that goes too quiet. You ever notice how Toby always seems tired? Not burned out, not stressed, tired in the way people get when they're holding something they can never talk about. Tired as if he hadn't slept all night. There is a theory, that he might be the Scranton Strangler. And honestly, who better than a man who lost his family and is being ignored by his entire coworkers? Andy Bernard wants to be liked so badly, he forgets who he actually is. One minute he's Ivy League, the next he's punching a hole in the wall. He switches identities like outfits, hoping one finally will fit. Underneath it all, he just wants to matter. But you can tell he doesn't really believe he does. And the harder he tries to prove himself, the emptier it feels. Darryl starts in the warehouse, literally beneath everyone else. Eventually, he makes it out, gets an office, a little recognition. He even gets his own computer or little television. And then the lottery happens. No matter how far he gets, he's always on the other side of the good stuff. Almost like a tragedy. Erin Hannon. Erin's whole personality is sunshine and confusion. She's sweet, kind, lovable, but under all that brightness is someone who never really got to grow up. She's still trying to figure out what love is supposed to feel like and what it isn't. No one ever told her the monster under the bed was just a dream, so the monster never left. She smiles through everything, but you get the sense she's scared to go back home because home was never safe. And maybe it still isn't. Gabe walks in like a corporate upgrade, tall, quiet, managerial, but the longer he stays, the more wrong he feels. Something about him doesn't sit right. He talks like he's reading from a manual. He flirts like it's part of an HR demo. Even his posture feels off, like he's not used to his own body. He tries to sound important, but no one listens. He tries to be charming, but it creeps people out. He doesn't belong here. And deep down, he knows it too. You don't fear Gabe. You fear the energy he brings into a room, the silence that follows him. Honestly, he himself is the cinema of the unsettling in the office. The office is built inside a space that restricts movement. Every day looks the same. People walk in, hang up their coats at the exact same spot, sit at the exact same desk, and just work. Throughout the seasons, there's almost no change in the environment whatsoever. The bullpen, with its gray cubicles and dusty blinds, it sucks the life out of everyone. The break room? Lifeless. A vending machine, a microwave, a table that people rarely sit and eat at. The annex is practically a banishment chamber. If you get sent there, you're out of the loop. Plus, it's icky down there. Even the conference room isn't a place for discussion. It's where bad ideas go to die. And the bathroom? It might be the most private space in the whole office. And even there, you can hear everything through the walls. There are no windows that open. No hallways that lead anywhere new. No color and no life. Just muted tones, coffee stains, cracks in the ceiling no one's bothered to fix. What looks like a sitcom set is actually a spatial horror. A space that kills creativity, that makes movement feel unnatural, even dangerous. It keeps people contained, small, predictable, and alone. There's a killer hiding in the shadows, and it's not the Scranton Strangler. It's the quiet, constant fear of losing your job. A lot happens in the office, but this threat never really goes away. From season 1 till the very end, branches close, people get fired. That fear is real, especially if you've got bills, a mortgage, kids. If you've ever worked anywhere, you likely know the feeling. When Jim's on the verge of being let go, when Pam quits and realizes she's made a huge mistake, when Michael begs for his job back, when Sabre swoops in and flips the culture, when Robert California shuts down a branch just because he feels like it. Any moment now, Scranton could be next. Limitless paper in a paperless world. That's what Michael says in his homemade commercial. And yeah, it sounds like a joke, but it also feels like a premonition. You can see the tension in every staff meeting, every budget cut, every time someone mentions corporate. After a horror movie, you might get scared of the dark, turn on the lights, or go double check the locks. With The Office, it's worse. You might start getting scared of your inbox, of surprise meetings, of your manager calling you in just to chat. It's a comedy. It's a mockumentary. But it's also one of the scariest shows about work you'll ever watch. When you're alone, there's nobody. When you're lonely, you feel alone even if you're surrounded by people. In The Office, characters aren't isolated, but they aren't connected either. They talk, joke, and work together, yet underneath, there's a disconnect. Take Toby. His presence is a joke, but look closer, he's ignored, mocked, silenced. Every word he speaks is dismissed before it finishes. He could be crying in the annex right now and no one would notice. But it's not just him. Erin desperately wants a family. She clings to whoever shows her the slightest warmth, but no one ever really asks her what she needs. Stanley sits in silence most days. People assume he's just grumpy, but they never truly try to reach him. Each person in the office is just slowly drifting away. Not with violence, but in silence. You don't disappear in a flash. You fade away slowly until the people around you only recognize your outline. Nothing more. And eventually, you just blend away. How about love? Even the stronger bonds like Jim and Pam, Michael and Holly, or Dwight and Angela have this strange disconnect between them. As if love is only allowed in small doses and the rest must be buried under routine. We don't notice this because there is a trick the office pulls on us. Ryan and Kelley's relationship, the epitome of toxicity, the constant breakups and getting back together, causing big scenes, the pain and cries, it's the most unhinged, so much so, the love between others start to seem acceptable to us, seem normal. But the disconnect is there, in all of them. The horror here isn't isolation. It's detachment within proximity, meaning they're just detached from each other even when they're so closely together. They're all just being part of something without really belonging to it. Most episodes of The Office run on awkward silences, small stakes, and familiar repetitions. But every now and then, something lands differently. The humor doesn't disappear. It just itches. You can almost feel it crawling under your skin. Dinner party isn't just uncomfortable, it's claustrophobic. The space is tight, the tension is tighter. And no, Michael pushing his plasma TV against the wall doesn't help. Okay, maybe a little, that was a goodbye. The music is off. Michael and Jan aren't just dysfunctional, they're actively unraveling. The relationship is imploding in slow motion and no one steps in. Everyone just watches, like an audience, like a camera crew. It feels less like a dinner party and more like an intervention that never happens. Michael doesn't invite them over just to socialize. He wants them to witness it, to see the destruction, to maybe save him from it. But no one does. His cry for help goes unanswered because everyone's too polite, too stunned, or too selfish to act. So they sit there, smiling, nodding, waiting for dessert, held hostage by discomfort. And here's the twist. It's not just Michael and Jan breaking down. Every guest at that table is experiencing their own little horror movie. Oh, and there's still one chair left. Maybe it's for you. Maybe you've already sat down. Because when we watch this kind of collapse from a distance, we don't always realize that we're in the room too. So if you're staying, go ahead. Subscribe and maybe leave a like. We're just getting started. Scott's Tots. This one's hard to watch. In fact, most fans argue that it's one of the most cringe episodes in the entire series. I'd say it's horrifying. What makes it scary isn't what happens, it's what doesn't happen. There's no dramatic meltdown, no chairs thrown, just silence. Disappointment so thick it fills the room like fog. The kind that makes your closet door look just a little too open. Okay, maybe not that open, but you get the point. These kids, Scott's Tots, spent years believing their futures were secure. They worked hard, dreamed big, trusted someone who told them they mattered. And in a single moment, all of it vanishes. No college, no support, just a broken promise and an awkward apology. They're not just characters in a punchline. They're a generation now forced to face a harsher world out there with fewer options and more reasons to stop hoping. And that should scare you. Spooked is a Halloween episode, so technically, yeah, it shouldn't count. It's meant to be scary, creepy, weird. But even by those standards, this episode is nightmare fuel. Gabe's cinema of the unsettling, Robert California whispering everyone's deepest fears like some evil corporate ghost. Yeah, that kind of nightmare fuel. The horror here isn't jump scares, it's existential dread. It's Gabe screening polished horror movies at an office party and calling it culture. It's Robert telling you a story that sounds personal until you realize he knows exactly who you are. This isn't festive. This is psychological warfare with cupcakes. There is a 1-hour shot of a girl with diarrhea. No, that can't be right. Is that seriously written in the script? Cut that. No, we're not showing that. No way we're showing. Goodbye, Michael is one of the warmest, gentlest episodes in the show, but also one of the heaviest. What makes it so strange, so uncommon, is that Michael doesn't make a scene. He doesn't throw a tantrum. He doesn't demand a spotlight. He just leaves. And somehow, that makes it worse. There's no big farewell, no closure, just absence. A silence that settles in after he's gone. And now what? The show doesn't break its format here, but it lets the cracks show. And for a brief, unsettling moment, we feel what the characters have tried so hard for years to avoid. The weight of endings, the horror of moving on, or worse, staying behind. Change tries to walk into Dunder Mifflin all the time, but the building almost eerily denies it. It rejects transformation in the most sinister ways possible. The office has a pattern, a weird, comfortable pattern, and anything that tries to disturb it gets cut off. Think of Karen, driven, professional, direct. She doesn't fit. She tries to make Scranton sharper, more modern. The office pushes her out like a virus. She vanishes quietly off-screen. Charles Minor walks in like authority incarnate, confident, sharp, commanding. The office doesn't reject him, they admire him. Initially, Kevin is in awe, Angela is obsessed, even Dwight respects the chain of command. But Charles doesn't get the rhythm here. He sees Jim's sarcasm as laziness. He misses the unspoken rules of Scranton's dysfunction. And so, slowly, without drama, he fades. He's not fired, not hated, just irrelevant. By the time he's gone, no one mentions him ever again. Gabe Lewis is corporate personified, all rules, all posture. But the harder he tries to install order, the more unhinged he seems. He becomes the joke he tried so hard to prevent. D'Angelo Vickers is bizarre, loud, overconfident, like a motivational speaker who wandered onto the wrong set. For a brief moment, it feels like he might actually change the energy of the office. Then, out of nowhere, he's gone. A ridiculous accident, a hospital, silence. Like the system almost rejected him. Like disruption isn't allowed here. Nellie forces her way into a manager's chair. She fights the change with chaos. But eventually, she settles, becomes part of the static. Another desk, another shrug. Even Robert California, who speaks like a Bond villain and manipulates with ease, is ultimately powerless. He shuts down a branch, breaks the rules. It all resets. Scranton survives. Robert doesn't. And then there's Sabre. A full-on corporate takeover. They don't just change the rules, they change the game. Suddenly, the paper company sells printers. There are new slogans, new policies, new water bottles. A total shift in tone and premise. But it doesn't last. The Sabre storyline burns bright in the beginning. And just when you think the system has finally evolved, that the cycle might actually break, David Wallace returns and buys Dunder Mifflin back. Like nothing ever happened. All that corporate chaos? The Sabre tech delusions, the revolving door of strange authority figures, wiped away with a smile and a checkbook. No matter who tries to change the system, the office always reverts back. Same name, same walls, same rules, and same people. Every time someone walks in with a plan to change things, the office absorbs them. They're either removed or they adapt so much that they stop being who they were and become part of the office. It's not anyone's fault. It's the environment's design. Scranton Dunder Mifflin will not be silenced. But every machine breaks eventually, even Dunder Mifflin. And yes, a few people actually do get out, or at least they try. Stanley retires. That's the cleanest ending anyone gets, but it's also the bleakest. He wasn't fighting to leave, he was counting the days, like a prisoner scratching tallies into the wall until the clock finally let him go. Michael leaves too, but not with fanfare, not with growth. In silence. His escape feels more like vanishing, like the system almost spit him out once it had nothing left to take. Jim and Pam managed to step away, but only after circling the same fights, the same fears over and over again. By the time they break the cycle, you can feel how close they came to being swallowed whole. Their redemption is fragile, almost too late. Darryl probably comes closest to real freedom. He joins a startup, changes scenery, reinvents himself. But notice how long it takes. Almost the entire series. Even with Athlete, his big chance, he can't quite break through alone. He needs Jim to jump first. Darryl is knowing he's good enough, but still having to wait for someone else to desperately open the door. Just to finally get a taste of the world outside those eggshell white walls. And then there's Andy. Andy actually gets out. He leaves the office, chases his dream. But his dream turns into a viral humiliation, a cruel reminder that escape doesn't always mean salvation. Sometimes it just means failing on a bigger stage. So yes, the cycle breaks, but not cleanly. Not heroically. Every escape is awkward, painful, delayed, or bittersweet. Even freedom in the office carries that same unease. I know that this is a mockumentary, but sometimes you have to ask, what exactly is being filmed here? Yes, there are zooms, but they don't build drama. They highlight awkward silences, shame, embarrassment, moments people wish weren't being recorded. This isn't cinematic. It's clinical. It's not filming, it's watching. And the more you think about it, the more it feels like the camera isn't just there to document, it's there to observe, to study. And in the final season, when the show starts leaning into the fact that it's a documentary, things get weird. Suddenly, the characters realize that they've been watched. Their moments, both big and small, have all been recorded. And with that realization comes something new. Reflection. You can feel the discomfort, the way Jim second guesses himself, the way Pam tries to fix things that feel a little too late, the way Dwight, of all people, starts to look inward. They don't say it outright, but the question hangs in the air. Did I waste my life? The camera was always neutral, but now it becomes a mirror. And when the characters finally look into it, they don't see who they thought they were. That moment, the collapsing of narrative into self-awareness. That was a complicated sentence, meaning the show stops just being the show, it starts becoming something more aware of itself. People suddenly care that they were being filmed. They realize what's happened. And it's too late to change anything. This is a psychological rupture. Not just for them, actually, but also for the viewer. Because if they can waste a decade without realizing, who else can? So why do we keep watching The Office? Over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Memorizing scenes, lines, entire episodes almost. And yet, it never gets old. We call it a comfort show. And sure, part of that is familiarity. There's safety in the known. But there's more than that. It feels cozy. Like home. Because beneath the awkward silence and paper-thin walls, there's honesty. These characters aren't larger than life. They're stuck the way real people get stuck. They try, they distract themselves, they hope. We laugh at Dwight's intensity, but we understand the need for control. We cringe at Michael's desperation, but we know what it feels like to be lonely. We mock Jim's detachment, but maybe we've used the same kind of indifference to avoid harder truths. The Office works because it hides the fear inside the rhythm of everyday life. It doesn't say you're broken. It says you're not the only one who feels this way. And somehow, that makes all the difference. And that's why we keep coming back. To feel a little less alone. To laugh. To cope. To belong. The Office isn't a horror show, but it holds a kind of horror anyway. It doesn't scream. It doesn't chase. It simply waits. In the pauses between conversations, in birthdays no one wants to celebrate, in dreams people forget they had. This is a horror you don't fight. You live with it. Horror of time passing. Horror of chances slipping by. Horror of being noticed too late or not at all. A simple hallway you walk every day, a desk with your name on it, a clock you stopped watching years ago. The Office doesn't show blood or violence. It shows something far worse. What happens when nothing happens? No growth, no escape, and no transformation. Only repetition. Until you become a version of yourself you barely recognize. Because it happens one lunch break at a time. And that's what makes The Office so quietly horrifying. It's not a parody, it's a mirror. And the scariest part? You're already in the frame. You've just watched Horror Within The Office. Thank you so much.